Good afternoon and welcome to the March 8th, 2024 meeting of the Rotary Club of Beavercreek. I want to thank Jonathan Hebrank and Mark Weinstein for the greeting, although Jonathan made me mention that he was here much earlier than Mark. So thanks to Beth Cusack for taking care of Ticketmaster setup, secretary duties on the call. We appreciate that. Thanks to Pete Bales, Mark Weinstein, and Mike Zwick for our great programs. Jim Gundel for taking care of our website. And I'd invite Denny Jarvie to come up and provide us with an invitation.
Well, good afternoon. Would you please join me in prayer on this rainy day? Oh Lord, you've blessed us. You've blessed the loaves and the fishes. Bless this food upon our dishes. Like the sugar for our tea, may our lives be stirred by thee. Amen.
Thanks, Denny. Appreciate it. All right. Secretary's report, Beth Cusack. So
John McCann.
Hi, John. Well,
Stephanie Prince today. I met her earlier here. Her husband Scott having a design service now in Central.
welcome.
And we have a visiting Rotarian from Vandalia, Frank, who brought a guest.
That's me. Took the liberty of bringing my friend Ben Ruggles with me. So I was really welcome. Thank you.
Yes, I've got Jeff Mann, our Director of Student Services, with me today.
Shannon has a couple guests.
I have Brianna and Abby, who are going to be interior designers today, and we'll be done granted.
Nice. Awesome.
And we put Don Adams down for a guest.
To all of her service is Carolyn DeStefano from Sheffield Township, and she's also a candidate for Senate.
States and District 10, yes.
There would typically be a fine for that political plug, but it's the sergeant at arms who made it, so I don't know, there's an enforcement issue there.
Hamilton.
All right, well, come on in. Yeah, please.
Sir. Good afternoon. Today is March 8th, 2024. It's the 68th day of the year. And we've got 298 more to go. It's also International Women's Day. Middle Name Pride Day. National Be Nasty Day. National Peanut Cluster Day. National Preschoolers Day. And something I may regret later, National Proofreading Day. And National Retro Video Game Day. This week we also celebrate two other things. Celebrate Your Name Week. National Consumer Protection Week. And my favorite, National Procrastination Week. National School Breakfast Week. National Words Matter Week. Return to Borrowed Books Week. Save Your Vision Week. Women of Aviation Worldwide Week. And the world's largest rattlesnake roundup in Sweetwater, Texas. Today in history, in 1817, the New York Stock Exchange was founded. So you can blame them for all the money you've lost. 1838, the U.S. Mint in New Orleans began operation producing dimes. In 1855, the first train crossed the U.S. Railway Suspension Bridge at Niagara Falls. In 1884, Susan B. Anthony addressed the U.S. House Judiciary Committee arguing for an amendment to the Constitution granting women the right to vote. 16 years later, they got it. In 1887, Everett Horton patented the fishing rod with the telescoping steel tubes. In 1894, the state of New York enacted the nation's first dog licensing act. In 1896, Volunteers of America was formed, and one that's all near and dear to our hearts. In 1913, the Internal Revenue Service began to levy and collect income taxes. In 1927, American Airlines was incorporated. And in 1930, baseball slugger Babe Ruth signed a 2-year contract for a huge amount of $160,000. And GM Ed Barrow said, wrongly predicted, no one will ever be paid more than Ruth. In 1936, the first stock car race was held in Daytona Beach. In 1945, the International Women's Day was first observed. And on this date, the Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 disappeared. This week in our club, we have a couple of things. We have a birthday. Ron Folker was March 6th. And member anniversary, Pete Landrum, who's not here, is 7 years. In my effort to give you more useless information, I've come up with a couple of strange and interesting facts. There is an annual coffee break festival. It's held in Stroughton, Wisconsin. The gathering includes coffee tastings, brew-offs, and bean spitting contests. And most of us were scared by Alfred Hitchcock, but I found out that he's afraid of eggs. He said, what did he say? I'm frightened of eggs, worse than frightened. They revolt me. The white round thing without any holes, and when you break it inside, there's a yellow thing, round and without any holes. Blood is jolly red, but egg yolk is yellow. Revolting. I've never tasted it. So it's something I didn't know. Pigs don't sweat. It's why they have to root around in the ground. Squirrels are behind most power outages in the United States. And some of you might breathe easier with this. You're more likely to get a computer virus from visiting a religious site than an adult site. And cotton candy was invented by a dentist. He was first introduced in 1904 as fairy floss. And this was another interesting. Children of identical twins are genetically siblings, not cousins, because of the DNA that is in there. So, sumo wrestlers, before they have a match, will make babies cry for good luck. A few things to think about. Never underestimate the power of stupid people in a large group. If you cannot be kind, at least be vague. I like long walks, especially when they are taken by people who annoy me. From the age of 8 to 18, me and my family moved around a lot. Mostly we would just stretch, but occasionally one of us would actually get up and go to the refrigerator. Now, in deference and admiration of our speaker today, I have a few attorney jokes mixed in here throughout. I have 4 different attorneys in here that are all in the judicial system, so I'm hoping I never get in trouble in Greene County. Lawyer said, now that you've been acquitted, will you truly tell me, did you steal the car? The client said, after hearing your amazing argument in court this morning, I'm beginning to think I didn't. The trouble with the legal profession is that 98% of its members give the rest of them a bad name. The best legal advice ever spotted on a billboard was for a law office of a guy named Larry Archie. It says, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. And there was a lawyer that emailed his client, said, "Dear Jennifer, thought I saw you on the street the other day. Crossed over to say hello, but it wasn't you." I went back. I've added 1/10 of an hour to your bill. American psychologists have isolated two fundamental reasons why men frequent bars. Number one, they don't have a woman. Number two, they do have a woman. In a physics course, which involved light, electricity, and magnetism, the students were required to read this week's experiment before coming to class. In one lab session, the student assistant wanted to see how many of his people had actually read the lesson. Said, "What are the two types of light?" The lab fell quiet until one wise guy raised his hand and said, "Actually, there's three: Bud, Coors, and Miller." And I just got a photo from a speeding camera through the mail. I sent it right back because it was way too expensive and really bad quality. There was this couple that was talking. John asked Mary, he said, "Mary, which of the following birds does not build its own nest? A, the robin, B, the sparrow, C, the cuckoo, or D, the pigeon?" Mary said, "Oh, John, that's simple. It's the cuckoo." He said, "Are you sure?" She said, "Yes, I'm sure." You heard Mary, do you keep the $500,000 and play for $1 million? I guess this was in a contest. He says, "I want to play for the money, and I will say the cuckoo." Asked her again if she was good. That was the answer. And it was, "Tell me how you know it was a cuckoo that doesn't build its own nest." She said, "That's easy. Everybody knows they live in flocks." Sorry about that.
No,
Oh.
don't do it.
There's three of
Yeah.
them. Oh, let's put it this way. There was a female in Colorado, herself a new Mercedes. She could drive the car during the day, but at night the car wouldn't move at all. She tried driving the car at night for a week, but with no luck. Furious, she called the dealership, told them the problem, and they sent a mechanic to her house. The mechanic gave the car a thorough inspection and could not find anything wrong. Eventually, he asked her, "Are you sure you're using the right gears?" He said, "Of course I am. I'm not stupid. I use D for daylight and for night." Then there was this lawyer who was talking to his divorced colleague. He said, "Cheer up. There are plenty of other fish in the sea." He said, "Maybe so," replied his friend, "but the last one took all my bait." And the lawyer asked his witness, he said, "Now, sir, I'm sure you're an intelligent and honest man." The witness said, "Thank you. If I weren't under oath, I'd return the compliment." As always, I like to leave you with a couple of positive quotes or a thought. You'll never get bored when you're trying something new. There's really no limit to what you can do. And I thought this was kind of interesting. It's 5 lessons from a pencil. Young man was going off to college and his father called him aside and handed him a brand new pencil. The father said, "Look at this pencil and remember these 5 things before I send you out in the world. Number 1, remember you will do many great things, but only if you put yourself in someone else's hands. Number 2, from time to time, you will experience a painful sharpening, but this will just make you a better pencil. Number 3, you will be able to correct the mistakes you make along the way. Number 4, the most important part of you is on the inside. And number 5, wherever you go, you leave a mark, so make sure it's clear and strong." Today's fines. Hope you got some money. If you have a middle name, that's $1. If you've ever ridden a school bus or driven a school bus, that's $1. If you've ever forgotten to return a book, that's $1. If you've ever been fishing, that's $1. If you've ever been to Daytona Beach for a race, that's $1. And if you're not wearing your Rotary pin, that's $1.
You take a check.
Now, if you have any money left, just David with Happy Bucks.
Here's my. Sorry, happy bucks are gonna be free today after that abuse, so we just done any virtual happy bucks, who's got something to announce and share with us? Come on, what do we got, Jonathan?
And I'll give two, last week we got to celebrate, our son's 11th birthday. Anybody knows from the club, when he came, was born, had some health issues for the first 6 months, so we really celebrated our his birthday. And then Abigail was probably one of the first babies here. She's gonna celebrate next Monday, her 14th birthday. Awesome, celebrate with my kids.
See?
Sure, you guys, probably met my son Jack. I brought him here a few times. He's a senior in high school, this year. And, we celebrated at home, this week because he officially accepted, to be a student at Ohio State.
Other happy bucks, yes, Rick.
Same. I went to the high school hockey all-star game. It's amazing how far those guys, but Isaac Graham, what a story. I don't want to embarrass his family over there, but the kid was kind of floundering in school, trying to find his niche. And I think you guys would agree, went into schoolwork and everything else. He found hockey and he just busted tail and he made the all-star team. And the guy really found himself. So I'm very proud of Isaac.
Awesome. Other happy bucks.
Chris, Rick.
It's free today. All right, so we'll do our ticket drawing. Remember that half of the proceeds go to our Christmas basket project for the right to select to try and get Queen of Hearts, I think. 339085 is the ticket we're looking for.
Oh,
Sandy,
Yeah.
Sandy.
they won't go to the house. It's a little bit of a full deck though, so. Mark Rose. The Mark Rose, all right, anybody have any announcements? No announcements, so pathetic. So I have had to stretch and look for somebody who knew our speaker pretty well today. And so I'm gonna invite Amanda Hayes up.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I was told I'm not allowed to ad lib at all. Because if I do, I may say things that you don't know about my husband. One being, he's an avid reader. His last book he read, Jane Austen. The other one, he loves to play the piano. Our baby grand, windows open in the house, the neighbors down the block can hear him. And that's all I can say. I will go back to. I'd love to introduce my lovely husband of 26 years, David Hayes, the Grant County prosecutor. We have two. We have two wonderful children, three adorable fur babies, 2 dogs, 1 cat. David graduated from Stephen High School. Thereafter, joined the United States Air Force Reserve. In the reserve with the Air Force, he served as a reservist, obviously, recruiter, 401st, 445th, and then the JAG Squadron. He retired after 24 years of service. Then for his higher education, he did the Dayton Triangle. Anybody know what the Dayton Triangle is? No? Sinclair, Wright State, UD. So he got his bachelor's degree from Wright State, political science, JD from UD. At UD, he had the opportunity to intern at the Greene County Prosecutor's Office. After passing the bar first attempt, he applied for and was hired as the assistant prosecuting attorney. He held that position for 16 years. Then in 2020, elected as your Greene County prosecutor, David Hayes.
Just one of the benefits of coming and speaking at the Beavercreek Rotary. Is that I get a kiss. Thank you. Is it gonna work?
This makes it. Yeah. Down makes it go forward.
Down, forward. Will it go back?
Yes, if you push it up, back.
All right. That's not working.
That's okay, I'll do it for you.
Well, your cursor's on that. There you go. Let me see that. Okay, now it's working. All right. First of all, thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm David Hayes. I'm the Greene County Prosecutor. I'm honored, first of all, to be here to have the opportunity to speak to you, and I am grateful to Dave Cusack for the opportunity. So, what I wanted to talk to you about today is where we are right now and where we hope to go in the future. My wife did mention that I was a recruiter in the Air Force Reserve, and this will be the only joke I tell, I promise. So, as a recruiter, I don't know if you know, recruiters have a reputation sometimes for not being truthful. It's unearned. It's unearned. And I always tease people that the reason that I wanted to be a lawyer is because I wanted to get, if I was going to lie for a living, I wanted to get paid more to do it. All right, that's my only joke. So, what are the top priorities in 2024? The first, the most important, the constant, the perpetual priority that we have at the Greene County Prosecutor's Office is to protect the public. That's number one. So I'm going to talk to you briefly about the things that we've been doing to accomplish that goal. Secondly, I'm going to tell you the efforts we are taking to modernize the office. In particular, a digital case management system that we are currently implementing. And lastly, I'm going to talk to you about training. I had a commander in the Air Force, and he would just not shut up about training. He said, training is everything. That was one of his 5 maxims. And I've taken that to heart. It is everything. And I'll explain to you why that is as I go through the presentation. All right. We got any Latin scholars in here? Raise your hand if you went to Catholic school. Anybody? Anybody want to take a stab at this?
Safety of the.
Nobody who's been in the Greene County Courthouse in courtroom 1 should know what this is. Dave?
Safety of the people is the supreme goal.
The safety of the people is the supreme law. Very good. Get a hand for your hand. Now I do want to go back. That stained glass window survived the 1974 tornado. It is the jewel. It is the crown jewel of the Greene County Courthouse. And that stands in courtroom 1. And at the very bottom, you'll see where it says the safety of the people is the supreme law. And a little anecdote, in the 1970s, a local defense attorney in Dayton actually asked the court during the course of a criminal trial to cover that up because it was prejudicial to their client. The court refused, and it stands there still today. So, the safety of the people is the supreme law. Now, of course, that's just a legal maxim. And all of the lawyers in this room know that the Constitution of the United States is supreme law, followed by the Ohio Constitution and statutes. But what this is, and what this always has to be, for anybody who's in the judicial system, including the prosecuting attorney, is our guiding principle. All right? We live, unfortunately, as the Chinese warn us, I hope you live in interesting times. Unfortunately, we live in interesting times. And that's especially true when it comes to public safety. There are a lot of things that have happened, not only nationally, but locally, that should cause all of us concern when it comes to public safety. Nobody in this room should have to worry about going to Walmart and on an evening to go pick up items. But unfortunately, we live in a world where you have to worry about going to Walmart. My brothers,
Your niece.
My niece, thank you. That's why she's here, folks. My niece was at the Walmart an hour for the shooting that just recently occurred. Where someone, obviously, you know the story, the person ultimately ended up taking their own life. But that is literally down the street from where we stand today. So this is what we always have to keep in mind. So how do we protect the public? Well, first and foremost, we aggressively prosecute violent felons. That is the number one priority of our office. I want to talk to you about two cases that have already proceeded to trial this year in 2024. The first is the case of the state versus John Schmidt. The second is the case of the state versus Reed Duran. So, John Schmidt, this case just happened down the street in Bath Township. John Schmidt was driving his car, and for reasons unknown, he crashed his vehicle onto Old Dayton Yellow Springs in Bath Township. After he did this, he actually broke into a home that was occupied by two elderly people. The male owner of the house discovered him in the living room, confronted him, accosted him, and forced him outside of the residence onto the lawn. And then Mr. Schmidt began to beat the man outside of his own home and put his hands, and I apologize for being graphic, put his hands in his mouth and tried to rip his face open. And then the wife came out. Mr. Schmidt started assaulting her. And then, when the police showed up, Mr. Schmidt started assaulting police. So this is a very angry young man. So the case proceeded to trial in January. Mr. Hunt's capable successor, as Chief Trial Counsel Bill Morrison, tried the case. And the issue in the case is whether or not Mr. Schmidt was not guilty by reason of insanity. That was the defense that was put on in the case. Now, luckily, the jury rejected that defense. And I'm happy to report that yesterday, Mr. Schmidt was sentenced to 11 to 16 years in prison by Judge Buckwalter. And again, when we think about public safety, when we think about where we should be focusing our resources, this is where we should be focusing on resources, people who represent an actual danger to other people. And Mr. Schmidt clearly meets that category. Now, the next case we're going to talk about also involves not guilty by reason of insanity. And as the judges in this room and as Dave Cusack knows, the legal standard for insanity is that you have to suffer from a mental disease or defect, such that when you were committing the crime, you were not capable of understanding the wrongfulness of what you were doing. So that's the legal standard. It's a very high bar to meet. And in that case, luckily, our attorneys were able to make sure that the jury did not get confused by the standard, and they saw through Mr. Schmidt's attempts to escape culpability for what he had done. But all I can think about when I think about this case is how terrifying it would be to wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and to find a stranger in your living room. And that is, again, when I think about a case and when I think about my job as your prosecuting attorney, there are a lot of responsibilities in the criminal justice system. Our judges have their responsibilities to ensure the fair administration of justice. Defense attorneys have a responsibility to vindicate the rights of their clients. But my job as the prosecuting attorney is to think about victims of crime and to make sure that their interests are considered and that they are vindicated. And in the Schmidt case, it happened. The next case is the case of a guy named Reed Duran. And if you have not seen this on the news, I'd be surprised. So Reed Duran went to an open house at St. Bridget Catholic School, and they were having an open house for the students who were enrolled there. They're actually having an ice cream social there. And this man who has no children, has no connection to St. Bridget, shows up at St. Bridget. He pretends to be the parent of a kindergarten student, and he starts acting very strangely. The principal notifies the police show up, they start talking to Mr. Duran. Mr. Duran tells them that he has starbursts that are laced with sedatives. He was going to kidnap a child for the express purpose of sexually assaulting the child. He is then arrested, as you can imagine at that point, he's arrested. He's taken to the police department, and while at the police department, he decides that he is going to grab a pen and he is going to attack a police officer. And he tries to attack a police officer, tries to stab a police officer in the neck. He is unsuccessful, thank goodness. He is removed from the interview room, put into a different room where he then tries to escape from the Xenia Police Division. So both of these incidents occurred in 2022, but the wheels of justice grind slowly. I'm sure you've heard that expression. So they just came to trial recently. His trial was last week, and after a 5-day trial, curiously enough, he's got 3 charges. One of them is attempted kidnapping, which is what happened at St. Bridget. He's also charged with felonious assault on a police officer for what happened in the interview room. And then he's charged with escape for trying to escape from the Xenia Police Division. He also claimed that he was not guilty by reason of insanity. Now, the jury split with regard to Mr. Durant. For the events that took place at St. Bridget's School, they found him not guilty by reason of insanity for the attempted kidnapping of the child. But they found him guilty of the felonious assault on a police officer and the escape charge. So, Judge Hunt was asking me earlier, what does that sentencing look like? And we're still trying to work our way through it because he is both subject to going to prison because felonious assault on a police officer is a very serious crime. It's a first-degree felony offense. It's among the most serious crimes that you can commit. And frankly, and I told the media this, and I'll tell you this, if you attack a police officer, you should be behind bars, period, end, stop. There should be no exceptions to that, from my perspective as a prosecuting attorney. But because he was found not guilty by reason of insanity, he's also subject to hospitalization. So the court has to craft a sentence that treats him for his mental illness and also punishes him for his conduct. This, believe it or not, is, and I'll say this, and I think that Dave Cusack, and I know the judges would agree with me, one of the peculiar features of our jury system is that you just don't know what 12 people are going to do. And that's part of why the system works, believe it or not. I always tell people that our system of justice is, Winston Churchill once said about democracy, he said democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the other ones. And that's how I feel about our criminal justice system. People complain about it constantly, they find fault with it, but the reality is, it is the result of a lot of smart people over a long time trying to make it work. And as frustrating as this result is, it is a sign, frankly, that the system works. Now, he is facing up to 20 years in prison, and he could be hospitalized for up to 8 years. That's the total amount of time that he could spend incarcerated or institutionalized. So, violent felonies are the priority. I told you before, we have limited resources. Defense attorneys always love to stand up during a trial and point to the prosecutor and say, that's the government, and they have unlimited resources to go after you and to go after your family. If only it were so. If only that were the case, my job would be infinitely easier. I have a limited number of attorneys, and though we have very generous county commissioners, Mr. Morales, thank you, they have limitations as well. So one of the management challenges of being a prosecuting attorney is deciding where are we going to focus our resources? How are we going to decide where our attorneys are going to spend their time? This is number 1 on the list. Violent felons who commit horrible acts of violence against other people who have bad records have to go. Those are the people who need to be off the street. Those are the people who need to be in prison. And that is our number 1 priority. That includes drug dealers, all right? Especially fentanyl, because fentanyl kills people. Drugs kill people, and the people who sell drugs kill people. And I wish there was a more direct way that we could go after them, but there's not. So that is where we are focused at the Greene County Prosecutor's Office. And as long as you put your trust in me to be the Greene County Prosecutor, that is where we will always place our focus at the Greene County Prosecutor's Office. Now, on to less interesting, but also less graphic topics. Now, the other things that we do to protect the public are we assist local law enforcement in what we call targeted investigations. Now, I will tell you that my former chief trial counsel, who's sitting back there, once told me we should probably avoid the word targeted. He said it makes it sound like you're going after people. And I certainly appreciate that. But the reality is they are targeted investigations. They're targeted law enforcement operations. And I'll give Fairborn as an example. And I lived in Fairborn. My wife and I had our first home in Fairborn. So this is in no way to demean the wonderful city of Fairborn. But Fairborn has some hotspots. Fairborn Apartments is a place where there's a lot of criminal activity. Landmark Apartments is a place where there's a lot of criminal activity. And if you're a law enforcement agency, it makes sense for you to focus your efforts on where the crime is. You go where the crime is. The nature of law enforcement, the